Welcome to the Rachel Varga podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Varga, double board certified aesthetic nurse specialist since 2011 with over 20,000 rejuvenation procedures performed. I'm an international clinical trainer for other physicians and nurses as well, celebrity skin expert, having been featured on some of the world's top proactive aging podcasts, and much, much more. Learn more at rachelvarga.ca and enjoy today's episode. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me here today on the Rachel Varga podcast. It's always a pleasure to show up and have some live communion with you all. Please, there's a couple people hopped on already. Be sure to be active in the comment section. We're going to be covering some really cool topics in today's episode here on the Rachel Varga podcast. Before we go any further, be sure to subscribe, hit that like button here on YouTube. It helps the channel out. And in today's episode, we are going to share a few tips for resolving fatigue, which, going through the aging process with everything going on in the world, definitely in communication with some of my clients that are really expressing they're experiencing more physical and mental fatigue. So we're going to talk about some ways that Dr. Evan and I here are personally dealing with this in our lives, our families, and how we're helping to support our clients. So we're going to share a few tips for resolving fatigue and working with different levels of healing, including some energy healing, because all of you know here on the show, the Rachel Varga podcast, it's all about body, mind, spirit, energy optimization for a higher level of radiance and beauty. This podcast goes far beyond just being skin deep, but it's going to be giving you lifestyle practices to enhance your body, mind, spirit, energy for you to be your greatest version. So we have Dr. Evan Hirsch here with us today. He's an MD and a world-renowned fatigue expert and is the founder and CEO of the International Center for Fatigue. Through his best-selling book, podcast, and international online programs, he has helped thousands of people around the world resolve their fatigue and also long hauler syndrome naturally, and is on a mission to help 1 million more. He has been featured on television, podcasts, summits, and when he's not in the office, you can find him singing musicals, dancing, playing basketball with his family, and just basically being a rock star healer in every aspect of his life, sharing some good stuff. Welcome, Evan. It's so great to have you on the show. How are you today?
Hey, Rachel. I am doing very well. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you here. And I'm really excited to get into how you're helping yourself as a busy entrepreneur. You're making a lot of appearances on different channels, helping your family, helping your clients. And, really what got you into your focus on fatigue, especially? I'm curious about your story around that.
Absolutely. So I started my residency back in 2004, moved out west, met my wife, fell in love, and 3 months later, she couldn't get out of bed. So that was really my first taste with chronic fatigue. And so it took her about 3 years. And during that time, here's this woman that I've fallen in love with, and I really can't help her. I'm doing my family medicine residency. I'm in a hospital. I'm asking everybody and their mother about what can help. There really wasn't much back then. It's kind of like thyroid and a couple of major medical conditions that can cause fatigue from a conventional standpoint. And so we went down more of a natural route, learned a bunch of great stuff. 3 months later, or 3 years later, rather, she was mostly better, but there were a number of things that still lingered. We got married. I started my practice. We had a child. And then a couple of years later, I got fatigue. And it lasted for 5 years and just about destroyed my life. Almost destroyed my relationship. She's trying to get better. And here I am. I can't even help out at home, can't do dishes, can't play with my newborn daughter. I'd come home and I would just crash. At work, I had to keep hiring people to do my job, whether it was administrative or whether it was practitioners. I had 10 employees and 4,000 square feet of office space and just about lost that business. And then I realized, and I wasn't a very good patient. So I realized, hey, I need to really prioritize myself, which is such a big part of this process, right? And stop being such a perfectionist it's okay to be vulnerable. And so then I realized I was already practicing functional medicine. And I knew that if I found all of the causes of fatigue, that I could address them and I could be successful. And so I went through this process, found all the causes, found all of my causes, and one by one, kicked them to the curb. And now I have amazing energy.
Ooh, I love that. Delicious, amazing energy does not happen by accident. So, I'm making this observation. We're seeing a lot of Western trained allopathic medical doctors that are now segueing into functional medicine. Now, you've been doing this a long time. This isn't new for you, but we're
Mhm.
definitely seeing a new kind of uptick of new initiates joining the club, which is great. So, I'm curious, are you noticing this as well? It's like we can't really work in the same models we worked with before. We need to adapt, we need to evolve the way that we're providing care to our clients and community. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. A lot of people are really disenfranchised with the establishment, and what they're realizing, if they're open to it, I mean, which is a really big component, that there is another way of doing it. You know, they'll hear about somebody getting better, and if they go down that rabbit hole, which is kind of scary for a lot of people, you know, they have this. A lot of times, people are getting into medicine because they want the comfortable lifestyle, because they know they're going to be making six figures even if they're going to have to work their tail off. But for a number of different reasons, people are seeing that there are other options, and so fortunately, they're pivoting. They're starting to incorporate more functional medicine into their practices. They're changing their practice models. They don't want to get burnt out anymore, even if they are conventional docs, and so they're starting to go to some of these more concierge-based models or subscription-based or membership-based, and they're finding just a lot more benefit there. And kind of what goes along with that is these people who want more care, and they want something that's going to combine the conventional with the natural, giving them the integrative or the functional.
And what we're learning is that people actually learn really well in groups, and then you get to work with other people going through similar things. So that's why some of these group trainings that I know that you offer that will definitely highlight throughout the program, this really is the future of health innovation and health education. And just the disclaimer, as you guys know, this isn't medical advice. What we share in today's episode, this is educational information only. If you think you have a medical condition, you must seek the guidance of a licensed physician and before making any lifestyle enhancements. But this is just kind of like an adjunct to the information you're going to be hearing, just to kind of maybe sprinkle some seeds into, navigating your life and wellness journey in a little bit more of a more comprehensive way. So let's just get into my next question here. But before I do that, I wanted to comment that I really feel like Europeans have been way ahead of us in regards to taking a more integrative approach. And then it's been
Mhm.
more like South America, a little bit more in US and Canada. We're still just super reliant on, okay, I'm just going to submit to the system and it's just going to make me better. No, we have to really take charge for ourselves and do what feels right for us. So, what are you doing in regards to energy medicine for yourself, your family, your clients, and maybe just even describe what energy medicine is and how it can enhance the current model?
Sure. So, what we know is that as this human system, we are made up of electrons and protons and cells and this electrical activity, and so we would be doing ourselves in medicine a disservice to not want to incorporate that sort of energy component. Now, we do know that there's a number of different levels to healing. There's energy. There's the emotional, there's the physical, there's the mental, there's the spiritual. And so all of those really have to be incorporated. So the things that we do in our family is we're doing meditation, we're doing mindset work, we're doing different energetic therapies like emotional freedom technique. That's something that I'll do on a regular basis if I'm having some anxiety, you know, which is the tapping solution. um, Acupuncture, you know, which operates on a number of these different levels that I got trained in years ago, which I no longer do, but is still just a wonderful component, in addition to all the physical medicine stuff. So it's just really important to incorporate all of these different aspects because they are going to address different aspects of your healing, and you do need to address, especially the emotional, the physical, and the mental in order to be successful.
Oh, I love how you dropped little nuggets there that I'd love to just add some things on what I've experienced personally. Well, first of all, emotional freedom technique or tapping. I actually did this last night with one of my practitioners. I meet with a psychologist regularly. And this is a really important time to seek guidance for both your psyche, your body, mind, spirit, energy, all of that stuff, so that you are actually kind of getting the upgrades that you need in order to adapt and thrive right now. We know this, we're in a huge humanity evolutionary process, and you have to be able to understand which tools you can use so that you can get better traction and make adjustments and change course on a dime. And that may be starting to happen in a different way and in a different change model than you've ever used before. So I invite you to have a mindset of being open to maybe learning about other modalities that you maybe have never heard about or used before. But I love emotional freedom technique, especially right now. We got a lot of like esoteric listeners here, a lot of intuitives, a lot of empaths really gravitate here, which is amazing. But it's really easy to feel into the collective right now. And that can actually be really damaging for our psyche and negative thought forms. So that's where EFT can come in handy to kind of release that. So yes, I absolutely love that. And let's get specific. Technologies. What kind of technologies are you enjoying utilizing in your energy practices?
So there's the ones that we use at home, and I'll kind of share some of those, and then of course the ones that we also use in our practice. So at home, so one of the things that I like to use is HoloSync, which is something that I can listen to that can kind of get me into the appropriate the wavelengths, which helps me out if I'm having some challenges with meditation, because I would say that I'm not a great meditator, but who is. The reason why we meditate is so that we can get good at life, not so we can necessarily get good at meditating. And even the Dalai Lama says, one day my mind might be all over the place, and the other day I can actually sit for hours. So we just have to. I try to be gentle with myself, and if it's not working, I'll just put in the Holo Sync, which is quite helpful. So that's one of the things we use. And then we have a sauna in our home. And so infrared is something that we use. We have a vibration plate, which is something that my wife is using. She just came out of ACL reconstruction. And so that's really helpful for moving the lymph, as well as a number of different components to healing. And I would say that, and then there's, a number of supplements that we use that work on an energetic level. So they're donating hydrogen and oxygen and electrons and some of these other things that we're using. And then in terms of the mindset, we know that, there is this amazing relationship between the mind and body. And as your thoughts go, so goes the rest of your body. And so we just want to make sure that we're not just putting in, organic food into our mouths, but also organic thoughts into our brains. And so those are just some of there's other things I'm sure that we use as well, but those are the main things that we're using. Oh, and then we use pendulums, or we're using sway testing in order to get some additional data and to improve our intuition with what are the next steps that we should be taking in our healing.
And listening to those nudges, listening to your intuition, starting to cultivate that. My hubby's a pro athlete. He always knows what's good for him. Does he want to do a little extra workout so he can eat a little extra, or if we're going to have some treats, making sure that, they're healthier. He's like, these are safe candies. It was so cute how he said it. And it's funny, the energy medicine things that you just dropped, they're actually all forms of biohacking. So biohacking can be a very kind of like cool tool to start to add slowly one by one into what you're doing. I did my sauna yesterday. I needed to do a little bit of a detox, and pay attention when you actually sauna, how you smell. Or is there, anything going on? Did you need to detox? You'll know it by the type of like scent that you may or may not be giving off, and pay attention to that. It's, your elimination processes, your skin will display if you're kind of like gunged up a little bit with toxins and all of that. So thank you for sharing that. The tip test, you mentioned the tip test. So the sway test. So if you hold something, literally, like if you're going to tip forward, that's going to be like yes. If you're going to tip back, it could be a no. Kind of set which different sway is going to be what meaning. That's a very that's been around a really long time. All right, so let's get into it. Everybody wants to know, how can we have more energy to, get the ish done in our life that we need to do, and how to look good and feel great in the process and not get burned out. So how does someone know that they have fatigue, and is this common in clients you work with, especially going through menopause?
Absolutely. Yeah, a lot of things. I'll address the second part of that question first. So, what ends up happening is when women go through menopause, I almost said when we go through menopause, when women go through menopause, is that there's this cessation of a lot of the hormones that are produced by the ovaries. And so then the adrenal gland has to pick up the slack and they have to start producing it. Now, if you have, and as we get into the causes of fatigue, if you have a number of these different causes, the adrenal gland is going to be taxed because it's responsible for managing stress and for putting out fires. And the more toxins that you have in the body, the more work the adrenal gland and the other hormones have to do. Consequently, the more drained the adrenal gland is going to be. And then the adrenal gland is not going to be able to pick up the slack when women go into menopause. And so those sex hormones that normally were produced by the ovaries need to be now produced by the adrenals, are not going to be produced, and consequently, you're going to have fatigue among the other symptoms that are associated with some of these different hormones.
And then, of course, our liver is important for hormone metabolizing. So when you see me drinking something yellow here, I just finished my jar right here. This actually is to support happy, healthy hormones in my body, and it's crazy. I kid you not. I had no PMS symptoms this cycle, and even my hunger is more controlled because ghrelin and leptin are hormones. And so the fact that I know I'm not eating as much in the evening, I'm feeling more satiated throughout the day, that is a sign that my hormones are balanced. So if you notice that like your hunger levels are kind of off, or you're hitting that mid-afternoon slump, start to pay attention. So I will have that protein pretty much at like 10 a.m. every day. So I'll kind of like fast a little bit. I don't do any like intense fast or anything like that, because especially for women and even going through menopause, sometimes fasting may be good for you, but sometimes not. So just start to pay attention to that. But the other thing I'm noticing with working with, so many clients, myself as well, is yes, some people have picked up what's going around the planet, and they're dealing with some lingering fatigue from that. We're going to speak in code here, LH syndrome. You know what I'm talking about there. So we're not going to like say code stuff for obvious reasons, because otherwise you'll never see this episode. But this is something that we're dealing with now. And it's just like that lingering underlying inflammation, which is going to totally wreak havoc with your skin and your aging process. But what are, some of the causes of fatigue? But why don't we just start with the basics? What is a level 1 problem, and what are the 3 levels of fatigue, and how can we work with some of the things that some of us might be experiencing right now?
Absolutely. So when we're talking about the 3 levels of fatigue, we're really talking about kind of like what solves a particular level. So let me give you an example. So a level 1 problem is a fatigue problem that is resolved by lifestyle habits. So let's say you have fatigue and you change your sleep. So you start sleeping more, going to bed at a more reasonable time, getting between 7 to 9 hours. You start drinking more water, getting closer to 3 liters a day. You start getting more movement every single day, and you start eating better food, and your fatigue goes away. And I should say, I never answered that first question, which was how do you know if you have fatigue? And it's pretty much tiredness that is not normal for you, that's not relieved by rest, right? So people are like, "Oh, I need a diagnosis." You don't need a diagnosis. The reality is that you've been adapting over time, and if you're more tired than you want to be, you need to get it fixed. Okay, so that first level, coming back to that, is all about fixing the lifestyle habits. So you fix your lifestyle habits and the fatigue goes away. That's a level 1 problem. When we look at the other causes of fatigue, we can couch them into 2 different segments. So they can be deficiencies, things that are not in the body that are supposed to be in the body, and toxicities, which are things that are in the body that aren't supposed to be there. And so when we're looking at deficiencies, we're looking at things like deficiencies in hormones and nutrients like vitamins and minerals and mitochondrial health. which is the energy center of every cell in the body except for red blood cells, and then neurotransmitters, and then the lifestyle habits. So that's the deficiencies. So when we look at this second level, you fix your lifestyle habits, and this is when people come to see us, is because you can figure out how to fix your lifestyle habits pretty easily. But if you do that and you still have fatigue, then you've got a level 2 or a level 3 problem. So then you might go see an integrative natural functional medicine doc. You start taking a bunch of supplements, which are usually to replace the deficiencies, all those things I just mentioned. If that fixes your fatigue, then that's a level 2 problem. If you still have fatigue, it means you have a level 3 problem and you have one of these toxicities. So we're talking about things like heavy metals and chemicals and molds and infections and allergies and negative emotional patterns and electromagnetic fields. And it just turns out that those toxicities also cause the deficiencies. So you can take those supplements that will replace those deficiencies till the cows come home, but it's not really going to fix the underlying problem, which is why it's so important to make sure that you get into fixing these toxicities. And so if you need to fix those toxicities in order to fix your fatigue, that's a level 3 problem.
Ooh, I've never heard anybody so eloquently kind of like lay it out like that. So everything we cover here, body, mind, spirit, energy, these are all just like lifestyle tips, right? And then I do cover I'm going through the layers. Like if I'm doing this work myself, for myself and also my friends, family, clients, absolutely making sure that your skincare and personal care products are not, they do not have parabens, phthalates, sulfates, artificial dyes, fragrances, not tested on animals, good business practices too. We want to send and receive clean money. We want to remember that. Be conscious who you're supporting right now with your cash. That is key. I cannot stress that enough.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where working with, Evan and I to help figure out what's going to help you in those aspects. I love getting some metrics. So some of the biohacking test kits out there, for example, like Viome for gut health, food sensitivities to figure out what's our avoid foods, superfoods. Like it's technology is getting like it's at our fingertips. Literally, you poke your finger, put a blood droplet on a little piece of paper, you send it off for analysis or in a vial, and you get key insights as to what you can address and different supplements and minerals you need to adjust. But you also mentioned electromagnetics. So WHO had on their website that about 15% of the population, I read this like a year or two ago, now it's not nowhere to be found on there. It's gone now. But a number of years ago, 15% of the population was identified as being electromagnetically hypersensitive. Now, what's rolled out over the last year or two, I don't need to say that tag word, but it starts with the E and ends with an F. We're getting more of that stuff now. And I feel like that's really kind of messing with us energetically as well. So getting that time in nature, staying grounded, having positive grounded thought forms, those are all really important. Is anything coming up that you'd like to add on that I just mentioned there?
No, I mean you kind of nailed it. It's really important to try to decrease your exposures as much as possible, so wiring your home, decreasing the Wi-Fi, making sure that you're decreasing the amount of toxins in your body, like with a sauna and whatnot, is so important because what we see is those people who are more sensitive to the E blank Fs are those people who have more toxicities that are actually present. So what we found is that because a lot of people will be sensitive in our program and then they won't be once we have removed. It's kind of like your body is this barrel and you've accumulated toxins over throughout your life. And what we do in our program is we get in there and we start dumping the toxins out and drill a hole in the bottom and kind of allowing them to pour out. And that decreases your sensitivities to all sorts of things, foods, inhaled things floating around in the environment, as well as the EMFs.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. But I think that actually might very well be one of the top health threats in our lifetime is the electromagnetics. And we had a huge solar flare last Thursday, and I felt it. I felt like really energized and kind of like ADD. So if you're going through your days and you're like, wow, I feel really really interesting today. I feel a bit different. Check into the Schumann resonance. See if there's like some solar flare activity. If your tech stops working, there's probably something going on in your physical body too. I mean, we're cellular beings and ionic beings, and absolutely. So, why is it so hard to address fatigue? Like, why do we get in our own ways with, getting all clearing all the ish out and really supporting ourselves in a way that we know feels good for us, but we kind of want to, I don't know, fit into society, go to restaurants, eat garbage food with toxic oils, and maybe not stick up for ourselves in a way that we should. What are you feeling coming up with your clients and those that take your programs?
So what you mentioned is huge. So lifestyle plays such a huge role. Now, what we see in addition to that are all of these different causes. So the biggest thing that I see is that people are not addressing all of their causes because there's actually 33 different causes of fatigue, and that everybody who has it has 20 plus causes. And this is a combination of those deficiencies and those toxicities. And so what this means is that all of those causes need to be found in order for you to match it up with a treatment in order for it to be remedied. I mean, if you think about it, it's a simple two-step process. Find the problem and fix it, right? So whether you've got an HR problem at work or you've got an issue with your car or whether or not you have fatigue or whatever issue you have to find the causes of it. And there's not just one cause, right? Which is actually something that I learned in medical school. It's kind of like you need a unifying diagnosis, one diagnosis that explains everything. Well, that's just not the reality of the situation. And you don't have to get overwhelmed by 33 different causes. Just know that you're just going to move through this process, figuring out each one and addressing it. And what I've found is that 75% of all those 33 different causes can be determined by symptoms alone. So when people join our program, in the first step where they're assessing their causes, they're able to go through it in like an hour or two and know 75% of their causes, which is incredibly powerful because then you can actually, with laser-like efficiency, actually apply the right treatment to those particular causes.
I also feel like sometimes people don't think that they're worth it to do this inner work, body, mind, spirit, energy optimization, to put their self care first. So there's a lot of blocks that I've just identified through conversation with people that, wow, I'm finally taking this step to have a one on one with you, Rachel or Evan, and I've been listening to you. And how can you? I have all these questions for you, and I'm finally leaping and working with you. It's like it kind of unfortunately takes individuals like a huge roadblock or an accident or a red flag popping up in their health and wellness for them to finally address it. And my advice for all of you is to start to identify things when they're kind of like the yellow flags before they become the orange and the red flags, because they're going to be a
Mhm.
lot easier to manage. So, what other blocks do you think are coming up with people when it comes to identifying or addressing their fatigue?
Yeah, I think that people are more willing to invest in things other than their health. And so that's definitely a big one that I see where people are, they're going to balk at buying organic food or they're going to balk at investing in a program that can resolve whatever issue that they have in lieu of, going on a vacation, which is incredibly important, or that big flat screen TV or something else which yes it's going to help you temporarily but in terms of making an investment of your time of your money into something that is actually going to solve the problem. That's a huge issue. And I think that a lot of it comes down to mindset, like you mentioned, where we have to remember and we have to really shine a light on how this issue is negatively affecting our life. So if we actually are honest with ourselves and realize, so the people that I work with have chronic fatigue and the LH syndrome. And so if they're actually honest with themselves about how this is negatively affecting their life, why aren't they once they realize that, then all of a sudden they realize, oh, I need to be spending more time on this topic. It's not just like ignoring it and it's going to go away. It's like, I need to spend the time, I need to spend the money, I need to make sure that I'm going to be successful. And so that's a big thing that I see. And whatever it is in life, if you want to be successful, you're going to have to do that. You're going to have to invest in yourself, your time, your energy, your money. All of these things have to collide at solving a particular problem.
Yeah, it's like be around people who are smarter than you all the time. Surround yourself with those of you who maybe understand a topic in a slightly deeper way than you might. One of the things that came up for me actually just yesterday was this whole concept of change, and how right now humans, like I said before, we're at a huge choice point in the world. Like, there's never been a time where humanity as a collective is making a decision to do this or to do that or to do this or that. And
Mm-hmm.
we don't really know how to navigate these changes. And it's kind of scary and it's kind of exhausting, right? Trying to keep up with the state of
Mm-hmm.
the world and all of that. So I was thinking about something really interesting yesterday. I had this old school Jeep. It was analog. So when I turned the key, it was responding to me. It wasn't digital. I actually felt it. I actually felt better on my off-grid days when I had that kind of vehicle, just so you know, because there wasn't all the Bluetooth and stuff like that. But now
Right.
I've recently upgraded to something like a Land Rover that's got a little bit more like sensors and sensitivity. So when I'm crawling over some rocks on a trail, it's making slight adjustments here and there and evolving to the track. So say this wheel slipping out, a little bit more grip and grab is going to go to say one of the other wheels, so that I can continue to climb up this hill with ease and with grace and with comfort. So when we're going through different stressors in our lives, try not to look at them as being like bad, but look at them as ways that you can learn how to, okay, here's a problem like fatigue, like stressors. How am I going to deal with it? How am I going to change through this and adapt and evolve? And I'm going to tell you that the way that we're adapting and evolving now is unlike a way that we've ever done so in the past. So a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people are having a lot of difficulty with this and wrapping their head around it. So how can we stay positive and keep our minds, our eyes on the prize, if you will, and live a more vibrant, radiant life? Because I really feel like through this, we're going to feel less fatigued, less of that beta state, less of that cortisol dumping, and our bodies can
Mm-hmm.
function better. Like, how are you managing with stress right now? I'm curious.
It's a great question. And one of the big components that we have in our program is mindset and mindfulness. And so our daily mindset practice that I do and that we recommend starts off with gratitude. And there's research on all this stuff. But gratitudes, 3 gratitudes per day is really amazing for putting yourself into the parasympathetic, right? And so these are some of the things that we're going to talk about that you should do, and then we'll talk about some of the things not to do. So it's the gratitudes, it's the envisioning, where you're basically looking at how you want your life to look like. What's a perfect 10 life for you? Maybe you're already living it, but if you're not, what does that look like? What are the relationships? If you were to wake up in the morning and go throughout your day, what does your energy look like? What are all those different steps along the way? How do you feel when your head hits the pillow at night? So that's an incredibly important component. We look at what are our limiting beliefs and then flip them on their heads and looking at how do we make that into an empowering belief, right? Life is always working out for us, right? There's always enough time, there's always enough energy, there's always enough, right? Living from that place of abundance. And then the last one that we do as part of that process is looking at the questions that we're asking ourselves. What are the disempowering questions that we ask ourselves? Oftentimes people are thinking, why is this happening to me? Right? Or why is this happening to the world? And the better question that we should be asking ourselves is, what can I do today to move my blank even forward? So what can I do today to love myself even more? What can I do today to improve my health even more? And we say even more to remind ourselves that we're already doing it, right? So that's the components that we encourage people to do. And then the things to avoid are things like social media and getting into comparison, things like the news, things like, arguing, negative people. So anything that's going to be negative, and I talked about organic thoughts. We want to be putting good things into our bodies, and I mean that's what it all comes down to, it, right? Put good things in and take the bad stuff out, or protect ourselves from the bad stuff. So that's what I'm doing, and that's how I'm staying sane during this time. And in terms of making decisions, it's all about what your values are. So the more clear you are about what you value and what you want your life to look like, the easier it is to make decisions during challenging times.
Ooh, I love everything you shared. And something popped up for me. So we just had Samhain or Halloween, whatever you want to call it. And when you think about it, like the ancient tradition of Samhain is like harvest time, right? We're talking like England, Scotland, Ireland, like the way that we used to respond to the changes of the seasons was harvest time. We're celebrating all the food that we're collecting, all the apples that are dropping off the trees. You better be collecting those and not letting those rot. And all of this stuff, and honoring the dead, and really missing our loved ones and things like that. But now it's like, oh, you gotta have to watch a scary spooky movie and eat all this candy and drink all this alcohol, aka spirits. And it's just crazy how certain things that used to have like a really positive spin then get completely distorted and programmed into us that this is what this day is about, right? So it's so interesting that all this stuff, all these programs are out there. You really have to start to clue in to what makes you feel good, and notice those contrasts that make you feel less stressed and what makes you feel stressed out. So social media, yes, I had to follow a whole bunch of different accounts and stuff like that, and there's a lot of free advice out there these days, but free advice isn't always good advice. So to be honest, Evan and I, our best stuff is in our one-on-ones, our group training programs, our books, all of that. But we do drop some good knowledge bombs here on the shows as well. And so thank you for sharing that. And I think a lot of women during menopause, like just getting back to that, it's almost like women during menopause, or even women during pregnancy, or as we age, for example, it's normalized to feel kind of like not great, and garbage, and like health decline. So how can we stay more in that positive mindset as we're going through transitions in our lives?
So it comes back to those mindset components. I firmly believe in that, is that, when you have these bumps, when you have these upsets, you have to come back to your center. And you have to figure out what that center is. When fear cannot live where gratitude lives, right? So when you are expressing those things of gratitude and gratefulness, you are going to find that you can't be in anxiety, you can't be in fear. And that also retrains the brain. There's this beautiful neuroplasticity that ends up happening with the brain, where it can change. So the more things that you are grateful for in your life as you go through your day, guess what? The more things will pop up energetically, and law of attraction, the more you're going to see things to be grateful for. So that's my number one recommendation for how to stay positive during challenging times.
Mm-hmm. And just with like the recent, stuff for Halloween, for example, you could sit down with your partner or friends or family and watch a horror movie, or like some massacre movie. It's all about getting you scared and freaked out. Or you could watch something, say, for example, like Harry Potter, that talks a little bit more of like magic and mystery and having a childlike wonder. It's like, get out of that fear stuff, slip into the more positive stuff around you that's going to be a little bit more like fun and childlike. So that's kind of how I navigate that stuff and don't get sucked into like fear stuff. Because in case you don't know this, this is a highly successful manipulative tactic to keep a population in fear so that their prefrontal cortex stops working, and then they're going to make emotional decisions instead of logical decisions. So we want all of you tuning in here to have your brain functioning well. So stepping away from that fear, you're going to be making more logical decisions and have more heart-brain coherency and all of that.
Yeah, and
So
I
do you
think you're
have
saying,
any, go for it.
well, I was going to say, and I think what you're talking about is living with intention too, whether it's Halloween or whether it's your birthday or whether it's New Year's, like use it for in a positive way. Like, what is the real, you know, definition, or what is a better way to use this? Or even like the Sabbath, or just taking a day off per week, like using some of these different benchmarks to kind of come back around and being intentional about things, so Halloween, Dia de los Muertos, All Souls Day, All Saints Day, whatever you want to use, let's remember the people who have passed. Let's appreciate them. Let's thank them. Let's remember our own mortality. Let's make plans for the future. It's a great opportunity to think about, okay, do I have my will in place? Are my kids going to be taken care of? All of these things without getting stressed, but making sure that you have a plan for some of these things that maybe you don't think about. And maybe you put a reminder on your calendar every year, we're going to be talking about this. I was just, by you saying that, I was reminded, hey, I'm gonna watch Coco tonight with my daughter. We're gonna go into Dia de los Muertos, and we're gonna remember those things, and we're gonna watch a fun musical.
See, I think that's beautiful. You, without even, knowing what I was going to talk about, you're already planning on doing that because you recognize, likely, you already recognize this. Why would I want to watch like a murder show or zombies killing each other and vampires? It's like, that's all fear stuff. It's all scary stuff. I get bad dreams when I watch that stuff. I like having good dreams. So pay attention to even what you're watching before going to bed to help keep your stress under control. Try watching something uplifting and happy and all that. You also mentioned something really interesting about how you're preparing for the future to help to offload stress, which absolutely is going to help reduce fatigue and stress related fatigue and all that. But just don't be surprised if the way that you used to prepare back then is different than now. But just really want to encourage having an evolving practice around the way that you change and navigate life and how you prepare things. Just because you're doing something new now might not make it wrong, or if someone else is doing something else differently. What's your take on preparing and changing right now?
So I think as humans, we're either growing or we're dying. I think that we constantly need to be working on improving ourselves. And so I actually just got off of a coaching call with somebody who's helping me with it's life coaching essentially. So helping me with my personal evolution to make sure that I do have the best relationship with my employees, with my wife, with my child, with my friends, with myself, so that I can continue to grow and to evolve and become the best version of myself. And I think that that's going to serve me well over time. And so I think the other option is just doing things that are fun. And there's nothing wrong with fun, but without a greater purpose. So sometimes it's the hard work that will help us evolve as humans, that will serve us well in the future. And that's what I'm banking on.
Oh, I love it. And also being just open to upgrades, right? So the next thing we're going to experience in humanity is transhumanism. I mean, we've got Neuralink at the doorstep here, right? So just like prepare yourself if you have like a niggle that something is going to happen in the future. Don't stress about it, but maybe just take some actionable steps to prepare in a way that feels right for you, like having lots of food. And if your power goes out, what are you going to do? How are you going to feed and warm your family? Like sometimes for someone like me who's type A Virgo, I love just being prepared. Like when I was 10 years old, I did a earthquake preparedness kit for my entire house. So I love, like, I just get a lot of like stress reduction in being prepared, but making
Mhm.
space for what's to come and how you're going to navigate that. And if you do mess up, then just give yourself a little bit of grace. One of the other things that, just because I don't want things to get flagged on the show, but But LH syndrome is definitely something we are seeing, and some inflammation remaining in the brain. And there are actually some supplements that I'm aware of that are quite effective at reducing even a post-concussion syndrome. Now, some of these things I don't share on my e-store for certain reasons. So if you're, I also work with some adaptogen formula to help myself manage stress. If you have some questions, reach out to Evan, reach out to myself, send me an email. Our contact info is in the description box of this episode. But what are you excited about for, this rest of the year, and how you're evolving the way you are, Evan, to support your clients and community in a deeper, richer, more fulfilling way than you ever have? Like, what are you working on?
So we brought in some NARM practitioners. NARM stands for Neuroaffective Relational Model for Trauma. And so this is a mindfulness-based technique to help people evolve spiritually and as well as emotionally on their path. And one of those causes that you heard me talk about was negative emotional patterns. And so it's a huge issue, and it doesn't have to be, physical, emotional, um, peer group, or didn't have enough love from a particular parent, or anything less than nurturing that ended up changing the way that you see the world, that got some negative emotions stored in your body. And so we've incorporated those things, in addition to some of the energy practices, along with the physical medicine components that we offer. And everything that we do is all natural, because I operate as a coach online in order to help people across state and national lines. And so everything that we're using are herbs and vitamins and minerals, in addition to these different spiritual and emotional components.
Absolutely lovely. This is a really fun episode. And I haven't really heard a lot of people talking about this stuff with navigating the stressors going on right now. Personally, I love getting more in that childlike mindset, playing, being in nature. But yes, I'm laser focused with reducing things that are going to make me feel fatigued, like eating foods that aren't right for me, or watching things that are going to put me in the fear mindset, and my brain won't work
Mm-hmm.
better. And we want things to be firing properly, because when your insides are awesome, body, mind, spirit, energy, your skin is going to have more of a radiant glow and shine. You're going to have more magnetism. And I'm really excited about just continuing to learn more about these body, mind, spirit, energy practices. I'm really transparent here on the show with what's helping me. And I think that those of you tuning in here who are empathic and who are intuitive, just wait, because I'm going to be sharing some more really cool stuff in regards to energy medicine. And yeah, like you said before, evolving spiritual practices, like, just don't be surprised if what once served you, you're just needing to like tweak and evolve. And don't be scared about that. You got myself and Evan here who are, kind of holding your hand through this process too. So it doesn't have to be scary. So where can people find you? How can they work with you and learn more about what you do?
So you can find us at fixyourfatigue.com, fixyourfatigue.com. We're everywhere on social media, have lots of free things going on to help get you educated. And if you do want to go deeper, you can always get on a free call with us and see about joining our programs. We have group and one-on-one options, to match whatever fits your budget, your commitment, and the help that you need.
And tell everybody about your book as well.
Yes. So my book right over there is called Fix Your Fatigue. I published it in 2017. It's been a bestseller, and it goes into my 4-step process on how to resolve fatigue.
Wonderful. So, have someone like Evan, Dr. Evan Hirsch in your back pocket, myself, so that you can navigate this stuff and tune into our what I would like to consider more kind of like high vibe content to help you out and all that cool stuff. Well, this is a fun conversation. I look forward to having you back on the show. And why don't you just give us a closing word of, or a closing sentence of inspiration to help us go through our rest of the day with a little bit more grace and ease.
All right. So let's do something that I used to do when I taught yoga. So may all beings know peace in their bodies, in their minds, in their spirits, their days, and throughout the entire earth and the universe.
Beautiful. That peace vibration is one to sit in when you feel yourself getting stressed and fatigued. Just go there. Go into that peaceful state. Take a couple of breaths. Get yourself grounded. We're gonna get through this. Don't you guys worry. Hold the hope, you guys. We're gonna hold that. We're gonna hold that as hard as it can be sometimes. But we're all here hanging out and we're on this planet together, and there's so many people doing good work in the world. And just remember, for anything that you see in the world that's kind of like negative and not so good, there's always going to be a positive opposite to that. So just stay in that more positive mindset, guys. All right, have a great day, everybody. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and we'll see you in the next episode right here on the Rachel Varga podcast.